Okay, it's 10:02. I'm going to get started again. This is brain building basics with Vroom, or using Vroom to enhance brain building. And I'm just trying to advance. Okay, there we go. I am Marilyn Gisser. I am the Vroom specialist here at the Department of Health with Essentials for Childhood, and co-hosting the webinar with me, but not in the room with me, is Ashley McHugh, who is the evaluator here at Essentials for Childhood. I want to get started on a few housekeeping notes. You're all muted. Could someone just put in the chat box and confirm you can hear us? That would be really great. And here are our housekeeping notes. The webinar is being recorded, and we will let you know when the recordings and the slides are posted. That probably won't be until after Thanksgiving. Let's see, you are muted, like I said. If you have questions during the webinar, feel free to type them in. We will stop at a couple points during the webinar to respond to questions and comments. I highly recommend, if you can, to do your audio over a computer and not over a phone. The reason is that we're going to show a few short videos during the webinar, and the way the GoToWebinar technology works, the audio for the videos will probably only play over a computer and not over a phone. So if you're listening over a phone, you may just have no sound. They're very short videos, so I wouldn't say that's a reason not to listen to the rest of the webinar, but that could be a little glitch, and I'm sorry about that. I don't think there's anything I can do about that, other than recommend that you use your computer for the audio. There will be a survey at the end. Please fill it out so that we can get your feedback to inform future webinars. And Ashley, have we had confirmation that people can hear?
Yes, everybody can hear you.
Everybody can hear me. That's great. Okay. Okay, so this webinar is the first webinar in a series we're doing that I hope will help you incorporate brain science into your work so that you can support child development, and so you can use Vroom to do that. Today, this is what we're going to cover today, kind of brain science basics, focusing particularly on why early relationships are so important. Then I'm going to give you an introduction to Vroom, really covering what it is, how it helps caregivers make the most of their time with their children, and a little introduction about how you can introduce it to families. And finally, I'm going to talk about how Essentials for Childhood can help you incorporate brain science and Vroom into your work, and talk about kind of learning opportunities and consultation and TA that are available. Like I said, we are planning a webinar series that continues this over the course of at least the next year, and we're really interested in hearing what topics will be useful for you. So those could be deep diving into how Vroom works in particular settings. Maybe we'll get some people who can talk about their experience, maybe in home visiting or play and learn groups, or lots of other settings. We could look at evaluation, we could look deeper at Vroom materials or other topics. So I really encourage you at the end, stay on and fill out the survey, because that is where you'll get a chance to give some input on that. And you can also email me. My email is in a few places, including in the attachment. That's the Vroom flyer that you can download from GoToWebinar. Okay, so before I start talking about brain science and Vroom, I just want to let you know a little bit more about who we are. We are part of the Essentials for Childhood initiative at the Department of Health. Essentials for Childhood is a CDC-funded initiative that we've had in Washington State for about 6 years. We work with partners across sectors toward this vision that all children in Washington State thrive in safe, stable, and nurturing relationships and environments. And we're working toward the 3 goals of increasing kindergarten readiness, improving child health, and reducing adverse experiences. And you can see some of our desired outcomes up here. They are strengthening protective factors. We have a number of different projects working on these, and Vroom is one of those projects. I see Vroom as especially aligned with those first two outcomes of improving parent-child relationships and increasing knowledge of child development. It's also indirectly related to those second two there, increasing community support and connectedness and increasing concrete support in times of need, especially if you use Vroom as really an engagement tool for reaching families and reaching different programs. And so before we go any farther, I want to hear from you. What do you like to do when you're spending time with a young child? What do you do to have fun? If you could just type that in the chat box, I'll give you a minute or two, and then we will read some of those. Ashley, I'm not seeing those. Are those starting to come in?
Yeah, so I'm seeing them in the questions box. People, do you want me to start reading them off?
Yeah, if you could read a few, that would be great. Oh, I see. I'm looking at the wrong stuff.
Yeah, so people said engage in communication with them, storytelling, reading, playing with blocks.
Great. Those are all great, and those are all wonderful things you can do, as you all know, with kids. So great. And those are all things that it's pretty easy to do in a lot of settings. I was also thinking we might get some responses that are, you know, a little bit more ambitious, like going hiking or doing a craft project, or I don't know, going to a fair, which are all wonderful things to do too. And sometimes they're a little bit harder to do. So when you look at a parent like this here is Daisy, and she's a busy mom. She has Anne here, and she's pretty overwhelmed. So it might be hard for her to find time to do those things. And even though she wants to do what's best for her child, she's got a full plate. She has a lot of responsibilities. She has a full-time job. She has chores to do around the house, and she needs to take care of her own needs. And of course, she needs to take care of her daughter, Anne. And just doing all those things and taking care of kind of Anne's basic needs, like feeding and cleaning and making sure she's ready for bed and health care and all those things can be pretty overwhelming in themselves. So Anne kind of wishes she has time to do more with her daughter, Daisy, to help her, but sometimes she feels kind of overwhelmed. And that's where brain science can really help us understand how to make the best of those times we do have with our kids, whether it's doing those chores or those feeding and those interactions, helps us navigate those and gives us some guidance to help Anne and others make the most of their time with their kids. So we're going to show a 2-minute video that tells a little bit about what's happening in our brains and why early experience is so important. And like I said before, if you are listening over a phone, you may not hear the audio. I would suggest switching to computer. It may do that automatically. If it doesn't, my apologies. This is just a 2-minute video, so just hang on. Okay. So you should be able to hear me now, and I'm just curious, does anybody have any thoughts or reflections on that video? You can either type them in, or if you raise your hand, we can unmute you. And while you're doing that, I want to let you know that that video comes from the Center on the Developing Child at Harvard, and that is another place to get, you know, really good information about child development and interventions to support child development, address adverse childhood experiences and toxic stress, and that link is at the end of this PowerPoint. So have we had any? Oh, here. Do we have the video in Spanish? I see. I don't know. We could look. That's something I will follow up on, and I would also just suggest looking at the Harvard Center website. Did anybody raise their hand, Ashley? I'm not sure I can see that.
I'm checking now.
Oh, here, now I see where I can see that. I don't see anybody.
It doesn't look like anybody has their hands raised.
Okay, and thank you for your patience. We're still kind of getting used to this technology. But I don't see any response to that. So here we go. So I just want to kind of highlight some of the key points for me in that video and in the brain science. It really showed, I think the video gives us really some of the reasons why early experience are so important. The human brain is really developing rapidly over the first 5 years and even prenatally. And so it's a really important time to have a positive impact. And as an example, early experience with language is shaping infants' brains long before they utter their first word. They're processing the sounds and coming to recognize different sounds. There's some really interesting research at the Institute for Language and Brain Science at the University of Washington, and that's another reference I have. You can go and look. They have some cool modules, but they found that newborn infants responded differently to the sounds of their mother's native language than to other language sounds. So even before they're talking, they're processing their sounds, they're responding to them, and that's language development starting from the start. Another thing that I want to point out is that what that science shows us is the interaction between biology and experience in shaping our development. We start with the brain full of neurons, and they develop neural connections in the areas we use. We adapt to our experience. And so positive supportive experience with adults help a child's brain grow strong and flexible. Conversely, adverse experiences lead us to react in different ways that aren't so constructive, put us more into that fight or flight kind of mode, which can be detrimental depending on our situation. And finally, of course, early learning happens in relationships. Infants learn and develop in relationships with trusted adults in those moments where they connect, where adults and children connect. Their neural connections really fire in their brain. And so that makes families and caregivers a child's #1 brain builder. And so just advancing on that concept of why the early relationships are so important. We really can't say enough of that. What they found, I think in more than one place, but certainly in the research at iLabs that I mentioned, that babies are really wired to seek attachment, and it's present in them from the very beginning. They seek attachment from a responsive adult. They expect caregivers to respond to them. That's a biological need. They connect in a number of ways through eye gaze, through looking in the eye and following what the adults are looking at. Back and forth interactions, which are sometimes called serve and return, and imitation are all important ways children learn. They also learn from really monitoring the emotional response of trusted adults. So watching how they respond emotionally, especially in a new situation, can give a baby or a small child kind of clues whether that's a safe situation, they should be concerned, how they should respond to it. And all these interactions build on each other. They build on what they've learned and continue to learn. And another thing they found is that intellectual, social, and emotional learning happen together, and they reinforce each other. They're not separate paths. They're all happening together. So this pathway at the bottom of the slide here, I think is pretty good to know about. You need to start with healthy relationships. That leads to communications, that leads to language, and that leads to literacy. And so that's where Vroom comes in. Vroom can take that science from the lab and put it in the hands of parents and caregivers and other people who encounter children. It uses accessible technology and print materials to reinforce brain-building messages with activities that are fun, easy, and suitable for a number of settings. Vroom was developed by the Bezos Family Foundation, working with leaders in a variety of scientific fields, including neuroscience, psychology, parenting, early child development. And they piloted first in 2014 in a few sites, including South King County. They're continuing to invest in it and refine it in response to that first 5 years of experience. And Vroom content is free. It's available. The print content is available in a number of languages. Electronic content is available in English and Spanish. So I want to hear about your experience with Vroom. I know from seeing some of the people who registered, some of you have some experience with Vroom. So we're going to do a poll about that. Ashley, could you launch that poll?
Sure, I'll launch it now.
Thank you. And you'll see in the poll you have 4. Okay, you should see them now. So just select one that, you know, most fits with your experience with Vroom. If you've been using it in your work at all, please click on the first one. If you've maybe checked it out, tried the app yourself, but haven't really used it in your work or with like clients or partners, then that would be the second one. Maybe you've heard of it, that would be the third one, or you don't have any experience. And are we getting, looks like we've gotten some poll results. Are they still? They're still coming in.
They're still coming in.
Okay. Give them a, looks like they've, well,
we have about 74% of people have responded.
Oh, I see. Okay, well, maybe some people are just on the phone.
Go ahead and close the poll now.
Okay, so those are results. So over half of you have actually used it in your work. So that's really cool. I'm really excited to hear about that and connect with you. About a quarter of you have checked it out, but haven't really used it. And then we have another kind of almost 20% that don't have any experience. So hopefully a lot of you who've used it, this will support you, or you can tell us how we can support you some more. I suspect some of what I'm sharing you've heard before, but I hope this is helpful. And for the rest of you, I hope this webinar and this series will help you kind of take the next step. So to move from no experience to awareness to really using Vroom. Why don't we go back to the slides now? Always seems to take 2. There we go. So what Vroom does is it recognizes that any moment can be a brain-building moment with our child, and caregivers already have everything it takes to build their child's brain. And every minute counts. Children love to learn from caring adults in their lives. The time together gives them a strong start in life. And like we see in this picture, it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be something that takes a lot of extra time or planning. Just that time when you're shopping in the, going grocery shopping. I remember when my children were little, hauling them all over the grocery store was kind of a big ordeal for me, but it's really a learning opportunity. Look at this. You can, experience new textures and shapes and new vegetables. And I just love the way this dad is really kind of watching his daughter's gaze and following her lead. And so that can be a bonding experience for them too. And what Vroom does, it's rooted in really 3 core scientific principles, and these are really building on what I shared earlier, but really takes those important positive adult-child relationships, and it uses that back and forth interaction, which is really how we create millions of neural connections in the child's rapidly growing brain. And it also promotes executive function. Executive function are skills like self-control, focus, problem solving, taking on challenges, and planning. And research has shown that those skills are really important for school success and success in life. And they develop over all of childhood and into adulthood. Vroom incorporates those into the lessons they have for early childhood. So now we are going to show another short video. This video is 3 minutes and the same caveats on the audio. So if you are listening over phone, again, I apologize. But let's start this video. Great, so hope you enjoyed that video. If you have any comments on that video, I would say go ahead and type them in the questions. And in the meantime, I can answer whether this video is available in Spanish. I believe it is. There's a whole Vroom YouTube channel, and they have a lot of different Vroom videos. And I'm pretty sure there's Spanish videos there as well as English videos. The link is at the end. And if you're having a hard time finding those, please reach out to me and I can help you find them. But I'm pretty sure this is available in Spanish. So has anyone, is this video a public
question? Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So the question
I
is—
can go ahead and read them.
Sure, sure.
Like. Is this video publicly available to share?
Yeah, so all these Vroom videos are available on the Vroom YouTube channel, and the address for that is at the end of this. And if you don't catch that, I will try to share that other ways. You can always reach out to me. And the other one is also public. The one I showed earlier was also publicly available to share. And then
we also have a comment that said, "I love to show this video when I introduce Vroom parent tips to families."
Great. The person who asked that, I may ask you in a little bit to talk a little bit more about that. I'd really like to hear about that a little bit later here. So I appreciate that. Yeah, I love this video. And are there any more comments, Ashley?
No.
So I hope you caught toward the end of that video, they talked about the brain building basics. Look, chat, take turns, stretch, follow. I feel like those 5 brain building basics are really the heart of Vroom, the heart of what, we are trying to help parents, empower parents to do, because parents really can do that already, and we just need to kind of show them that that's something they do and it's beneficial for their child. And basically what Vroom has done is they've taken those scientific principles we talked about and identified these are the really 5 actions that make up a brain building moment. This is how we translate that science to action. And they've translated it into these Vroom tips. So Vroom has a collection of over 1,000 different tips. They're available in a number of different formats. So this is just one that kind of looks like a card. And these are really the cornerstone of Vroom. Again, these are available free. The tips promote brain development for children ages 0 to 5, language development, early literacy, numeracy, and executive function. And for caregivers who need, those 5 brain building basics, look, chat, take turns, stretch, follow. A lot of people can kind of figure out how to put that into action. But the tips really give very concrete, specific activities that you can do to put those into action in the moments you have with your child, wherever it is. It could be, out and about in doing chores or whatever, but they are all easy. They promote bonding and learning. They make it fun, and they help caregivers build their children's skills. And so what you can see, I just want to show you every tip you can see here. This says it's for ages 4 to 5. Every tip is written for a specific age, starting at 0 through age 5, and they are labeled that way. They all have some kind of activity. So this one has home museum. Invite your child to find some special things and put them out like in a museum or store. Have them lead you through their collection, ask you to share why the items are meaningful, and taking turns. And so there's multiple parts in there. It has that back and forth. A lot of tips have that back and forth. And so if this was a picture of a card, that would be the front. And then the back is this brainy background, which really explains in very accessible terms what your child is learning, what's happening when you're doing that tip. So in this one, your child's practicing communication skills. They're thinking about what to say, so that's using memory and planning. And when you listen and share their words, feelings, and actions, you're building a safe place for learning. And so the tips are available in a number of different formats. They're available in PDFs and in cards, and the PDFs are available in many different languages. If you're interested in different languages, you can let me know and I can get them. They're also available through technology in English and Spanish. So this is a picture of the app. That's, I think, one of the most accessible ways for families to get the tips. If they use apps, you just download the app at the App Store. It's free. It does ask for a little bit of information just to sign up so they can, identify your child. That asks for the birth month so that they can give you age-appropriate tips, but it doesn't collect a lot of data. It's not doing any tracking of where you're going or anything like that. So if people have concerns around that, you can tell them, no, they're not doing that. It's just getting enough data to give appropriate tips. And then you can set it up to ping you when you want it to ping you. So say every day 1 o'clock, mine says, try a Vroom tip. And it gives me a tip. And you can see this is kind of what it looks like in the real world. So I know it's hard to read, but it pops up the tip. And then if I scroll down, I can see the brainy background, and I can click on this "We did it," and it has some pretty graphics. So a lot of people like those graphics. And one thing that's really cool about the app, and this is different than a few years ago. So if you looked at the app a few years ago and haven't looked at it recently, this might be a change, is that you can look at this tip and say, this tip is for when you're out and about, but I'm at home and I'm doing laundry, or it's dinner time, or we're trying to go to sleep. You can scroll down and it gives you a lot of choices so that you can pick a tip that fits your setting or your mood right now. So that's a really cool thing about the app.
Marilyn, we had a question that came in about the materials, and the question is it possible to get already printed cards straight from Bezos Foundation? My programs don't typically have the funds for quality printed materials.
Yeah, if I understand the question. So, and I could also talk offline about that. So there are a lot of materials you can download and print yourself, and I can talk about that more later if we have time. There's also materials that you can order from the Bezos Foundation, and there is a Vroom store, and we can pull that up at the end if we have time. You need to set up an account. I mean, there is a little bit of a cost. They don't charge exorbitant amounts. They basically charge the cost of printing them. But I've also talked to people who say, it doesn't have to take a lot of funds because things are available online. You can print them out yourself. You can use social media. You can look online. So there are ways to get around the cost barrier. And I know that some folks have been very successful with that. And that's something we could talk about some more in the future. I hope that's a start at that, and I'd love to talk to whoever that is some more about how we can help you with that. Was there any more questions?
Nope, that was it. Oh, wait, one more came in. I have signed up for the app a few times, and after a few weeks, it has stopped sending me notifications. Has anyone else experienced this?
I'm not aware of that, and I would love to talk to you and check in with Bezos and see if there's something we can do to address that, because that hasn't been my experience, so I'm not sure what's going on there. But that's something that I'd be happy to follow up on, because that shouldn't be happening. So I'm going to continue on, and then if we have time at the end, I could show you the store, and if not, that'll be another presentation, or you can reach out to me directly. Here, where's my next slide? My slides are not advancing, Ashley. Oh, there it is. Okay, so another option, and this is a little bit newer, so you may or may not know about this. This is relatively new. Is Vroom by text. So you can, for people who don't like apps or don't use apps for whatever reason, maybe their phone isn't capable of it, there's also the option of text messages, and it's not as pretty as the app and interactive, but for some people that's the right option, and it does ping you. It comes once a week, so you would text this number and sign up, kind of similar to the way you sign up for the app, and then you would get tips once a week per child. And it's not as interactive, but it does come up every week. So if you don't, unlike the app, maybe it comes up and then maybe you just don't see it. Maybe that's what's going on, and then it goes away. But with this, it comes up in your text and it's sitting there, and when you're ready, you can interface with it. So it's a 3-part thing. So you can see the first part, Jesse from Vroom here, and it's actually that same tip we were looking at earlier. It's just the first part of the tip about having fun when you're out and about. And then if you're engaged, you can type next, and you can do it right when it comes, or you can wait. It can be sitting in your text messages, and later you can pick it up and do it. And then it gives you the rest of the activity. And then when you type next again, it gives you the Brainy background. So that's another option available in English and Spanish that might be good for some people, and especially if you really want to get that conscious pinging, because now I'm wondering, maybe the app pops up, and then if you don't see it, it goes away. But like I said, I'd like to explore that further. And so we have another video just so you can see what a Vroom moment looks like in action. Okay, and there's the screen again. So that's just an example of what, Vroom looks like in practice. They're making something kind of boring, like setting the table, fun for the kids, and they're using their planning skills and their math skills, and the children are interacting with, I think those are their grandparents. So yeah, that's just an example. And there's a lot of little videos like this, Vroom moments, that are just 1 minute at that YouTube channel, and you can pick ones that fit your audience. So a few weeks ago, I spoke to teachers who work with teen parents, and this wasn't the video I would use for them with the grandparents. I think we've been showing you kind of what Vroom looks like and what the concepts are and what a Vroom moment look like. I want to just show you how Vroom works in programs and in communities. And we did have a couple people at the beginning raise their hand and say that they have been using Vroom. I'm wondering if one or two of you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about how you use Vroom in your programs. If you could raise your hand, we can unmute you and call on you. I'm going to give you a second for that. Or you could type it in if you would rather, but it would be great to hear from a few of you. Oh, so Fabiola, I see you raising your hand. I'm unmuting you. I hope I pronounced
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Let me step out of my room. It's kind of loud in here real quick.
Okay.
Okay. So I like to use the videos to introduce the Vroom. I feel like they stir up a lot of emotion in the parents, and when they see that, just their expression, it's like they're amazed at the things that you can do, or that if you just paid a little attention to it, then you would you didn't realize that you were already doing that.
That's great. So what kind of work do you do? Are you a home visitor or something like that?
Yes, I'm a home visitor.
Great. So you share it with your clients when you visit them, and do they use the app or use the text or anything like that?
Yes, I've got feedback from several of them. Like when I revisit, they say, yes, I have the app. We've been looking at them. They really enjoy them.
Well, great. Well, I really appreciate you sharing. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Me myself as a parent, I'm amazed. I mean, these are things you just automatically do as a parent, but you don't really understand what the science is behind it until you see it. Like, this is what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think about that as a parent too. Well, thank you. I appreciate you sharing. I'm going to mute you again. So,
Marilyn, we had
yeah,
a
I just
couple of
want.
things come in through the question box. Do you want me to read them?
Oh, yeah, that would be great.
So Adriana said, we share a lot of room messages and videos on our Watch Me Grow Facebook page.
Oh, okay.
And then another attendee said, we promote it in Kaleidoscope Play and Learn groups. I've also shared the information in parenting education classes. The video, sorry, it cut off. The video where they send the families a mirror is always a big hit.
Great. Are there any more?
Those are all that I have right now.
Great. Well, I think you've really made the point that Vroom really fits well in a lot of different programs and in a lot of different ways. You can kind of find a way to fit it that works for you. And there's really lots of ways to share Vroom and share Vroom concepts. You can kind of model the brain building basics in your interactions with families and children, and praise when you see brain building moments in those natural interactions. Plus, of course, directly share the materials or resources with families, and even kind of try acting out Vroom tips. Like I've heard of people doing that in play and learn groups and in library settings and in home visiting. So that's really, one of the cool things about Vroom is how well it fits in different kinds of programs. And I've talked to people who use it in lots of different programs. Okay. And now, I'm not going to read this. I see I'm watching the clock. So I'm just sharing this quote, but this is from Pierce County when they did some activation of Vroom a few years ago, and they are doing some more, but they just found that Vroom very impressive and positive. And I think, like we heard in the comment just now, it really empowers parents to see how their everyday interactions can have such a positive impact on their children. And they also talk about how highly engaging the materials were. I think that's another important feature of Vroom, is that not only is Vroom something you can use to kind of meet your child's development goals, but it can be something programs use to engage families and to engage other programs, because it's so attractive and fun and easy. And I'm gonna skip a couple slides. This is just one about libraries. I'm gonna skip that right now. But I did talk to people in Oregon, WIC, and I know this is hard to see, but they did a lot of work with WIC in Oregon in incorporating Vroom into their WIC work. And one thing they told me is that it was really beneficial for engaging more families in WIC. And the other thing I want to say about how it is so adaptable, so you can, when you're sharing Vroom with families, you can pick messages and tips that fit what you're doing, that fit your setting, and you can download them in different packets kind of around different topics. Like there's a whole packet of tips that have to do with mealtime and eating, or out and about and playtime or math. So say you're doing a table at a farmer's market, you can bring some tips that specifically relate to food or relate to being outside. And so if you're at a library, you could pick some that are about literacy if that's your goal. But it can really be, I think you can customize how you share it to fit with your work. And one other thing I just wanted to emphasize is that what the foundation really emphasizes is sharing Vroom directly with families through people they trust, like different kinds of providers and different people they encounter, and sharing it one-on-one, and then reinforcing that through multiple touch points. So that could be, say you're a home visitor and you share it one time, and then you say, go try it this week and come back next week and we'll talk about it. And then in some communities around the country, they have so many different partners working on it that someone can go, say their home visitor shares it, and then they go to the doctor's office and the doctor might mention it. And then more this kind of lighter touch media like signs and bus signs. And here on the left, we have a sign in a children's museum. So that can both give them an activity in the Children's Museum, but if they've already heard of it, they reinforce it. And so that reminds them about it. It means that other people see it too, and they're starting to have a common language. And so that's really how we like to share Vroom. And so like I said, our role is that we are the Washington Vroom anchor partner. We are working with the Bezos Foundation and really want to encourage Vroom across Washington state. There are some, Vroom is strong in some parts of the state, particularly in King County and some other pockets, but we want to spread it all over the state. And I'm trying to engage a network of partners around the state. Like I said, I'm connected to other Vroom work that's happening in the state and beyond. And I also am connected to the Bezos Foundation. So I'm aware of kind of what are the latest resources, what are they working on. They're doing a lot now to develop some new materials and thinking about new ways to support partners. And they're also receptive to input from us. And a little bit more on how I can support you. I'm doing learning opportunities like this webinar and planning to do more webinars in the future. You can reach out to me and I can provide one-on-one technical assistance. I can make connections to other Vroom users. So if you're, say, in home visiting, I can help you find some other home visitors who are working with Vroom and they can talk to you about their experience. Also working on some communication tools. So if you want to put something on your website or in your newsletter, we're working on that, and those will be available over our website probably in the next few months. And I'm interested in hearing what else would be useful. And finally, I'm available to come to some meetings and conferences to do presentations and exhibits, focusing primarily on kind of providers and other partners. So here's just how you can stay engaged and learn more. If you want to keep getting updates, we have an email list, and probably many of you are on it. But if you're not on it and you want to get on it, you can email me at this address or at my direct address. Either one works fine. This one is essentials4childhood@doh.wa.gov. And then here's some of the resources I mentioned. You can go to the Vroom website and take a look at Vroom and some of the messages and some of the resources. Go to this YouTube channel and check out all the videos. And here are the links I mentioned for the Institute for Learning and Brain Science at the UW and the Center on the Developing Child at Harvard. So we have a few more minutes, and I'd really like to open it up for questions and discussion. So here are just some topics I'd be interested in hearing about. How could Vroom enhance your work? What would you need to be successful? So how we could support you, and any other questions or suggestions. Really, now is the time for that. And we'll be watching both the chat and if anybody's raising their hands. Are you seeing any, Ashley?
I am not seeing any questions coming in the chat box. I think that somebody, let's see if anybody has their hand up.
I think the hand that's up is the one from before that we didn't put down.
There we go. Yep.
Okay, so
oh, we had one thing come in. So what are some favorite tips to demonstrate during a community event?
What are some favorite tips to demonstrate? I don't have those at my fingertips, but I could work with you to kind of look at the tips and figure out what would work. Or if there's anybody out there who has shared Vroom in a community event, if you want to either raise your hand or type them in, I'd love to hear from you. And while we're waiting on that, since we have about 5 minutes, I'll sign off a little before 11 because I want to make sure you all get to the survey. But Ashley, you could pull up the Vroom store and we could just show people what that looks like.
Sure. We just had a couple more. We had a couple comments come in. So one was that the providers they work with always are looking for printed materials to display in their classrooms. Another one is there recently was a grant opportunity to implement Vroom in communities. Are there plans to offer other grant opportunities with fewer restrictions?
Yeah, so we did have an RFP this summer, and we did award three grants and getting started on that. And yes, we're planning on having another grant opportunity. It will probably be in the spring. I'm interested in what were the restrictions that you thought were challenging. I was hoping there weren't too many restrictions, so would love to hear what about that was a barrier, because the next RFP may look different. So you can either type those in or get in touch with me again. But yes, there is going to be another funding opportunity probably next spring. It might be a little later than that.
And
I
then
think you said
another attendee said that the cup tower is a good one that works for multiple ages when you're doing a community event. And another person said, I share a specific fun activity that usually makes them smile for an 18-month-old. Blink twice and see what your child does. And then there was one more question. How do we engage families with Vroom who are not tech savvy?
Okay, so I don't know if anybody out there who works directly with families would like to take on that last question, if you want to type something in. But I think my understanding, I don't work directly with families, but we do have Vroom tips available in lots of different formats. You can get a nice ring, a ring with different tips, and you can kind of share them with the families. You can print them out. They don't have to be tech savvy. I think you can talk about the concepts and then come back and revisit the concepts. So there are other ways, and I'd be curious to hear from other people on the phone if they do that, how they do that.
I don't see any coming in right now. I'll put the Vroom store on the screen though, so people can just see what that looks like in the meantime.
Okay, yeah, and if any more of those come through, but I would also, again, I'm here to provide consultation and technical assistance, and if I don't have the answer, I can reach out to other people who use Vroom, and they may have ideas, and I can also reach out to the Bezos Foundation. So what you're seeing right now is the Vroom store, and this you need to, I can send the link. You need to apply for an account. It's not that hard, but I can send that to you. And then you can order a lot of these materials from the Vroom store at a fairly reasonable cost. So they have, I don't know if I can scroll this, Ashley, but maybe you can scroll it a little bit.
Yeah,
so
sure.
They have different flyers and different postcards. Okay, why don't you stop now? And these are the Vroom tip rings that we were talking about. So these are, I don't know, they're like 2x3 cards or something like that, and they're nice and sturdy and you know, shiny, and they're on these tip rings, and a lot of people I've talked to really like them. They can share different kinds of tips with the families. And you may have seen old versions where the tips were grouped by age. I think they've transitioned to the tips actually being grouped by the 5 brain building basics. They're in the process of updating a lot of these materials. So you can see all the way here on the top right, that's the new version of the 5 brain building basics, and it's very colorful. They used to use a lot of orange, and they're getting away from that. But you can set up an account and order these materials. I know you can't see these, but kind of on the left in the middle, these are decals. They have a lot of different decals and stickers that you can post up so that people can see them, including ones for museums, as well as you can see t-shirts and bags, and I think there's key rings. And the PDFs of a lot of the print materials are also available right on the Vroom website, and you can print them out. If you wanted to put your logo on that, there's ways to do that, and I can help you work with that on that too.
And then
oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
There was just one question. Have you reached the Spanish radio shows to talk about Vroom materials and ideas from Columba?
No, I have not, and it's possible that some people have done that, maybe in King County. I have not, but I don't know that that hasn't happened. But that's a great question, and we can explore that. So anyway, like I said, it's 11 right now, and I know people have to move off to other things, and I want to make sure that you have time to do the survey. if you can before you sign off. If not, I think it will also be emailed. It's just a really quick survey because we want to get your input for future webinars. So thank you very much. I appreciate you all participating in this, and I hope we'll see you virtually again. Thank you.